The Secret Doctors of NASA is a series of memoirs, diaries, and reports from actual doctors employed by an undisclosed arm of NASA between 1970 and 2001. These writings contain true accounts of the unusual and often highly classified medical conditions experienced by astronauts during and after their space missions. Following the defunding of the clandestine medical program after the September 11, 2001 terror attacks, the majority of these accounts were left, forgotten, on tape drives in a NASA storage facility. In 2016, a former intern, whose job was to clean out one of these facilities, discovered them. 2 years later, he is ready to release what he found. Thus far, the following report has been released. A Dentist's Discovery, Arnold F. A. DDS, August 4th, 1989. I met the astronaut after a half-year mission on the Russian space station. He'd gone through his preliminary post-landing physical but complained about pain in his jaw and gums. His health, aside from those complaints, was fair. It was my job to find out what was wrong with him before moving him on to the next specialist. The urologist, I think. The order always changes. The patient was in decent spirits when we met, although I could tell something was on his mind. We chatted for a little bit. It turned out he'd been working on the Feng Li discovery. My heart sank when Feng and Li discovered what they initially called the Venus Tic Tacs in 1982. No one in the know was surprised. Just another alien organism to add to the list of hundreds. A team was formed to conduct research and determine its risks and benefits, and there were no expectations that anything would come of it. Well, as is so often the case, those in the know knew nothing. Give those Venus Tic Tacs an electric shock in the right place for the right amount of time, and what do you get? Pluripotent stem cells. They had the potential to be a game changer in the field of regenerative medicine. I don't think anyone expected to discover them when we did. All the data we had showed we were at least a decade away from inducing pluripotency. Hell, we assumed civilian doctors might figure them out first. This was big, capital B. In dentistry, it meant we might be able to regrow missing teeth and reverse jaw deterioration. I followed the studies with great interest. The animal tests were successful. New teeth, better jaws, nice smiles all around. Success, good, great. The researchers moved on to human subjects. Failure, nothing, zilch. No reason, no goddamn reason whatsoever. No one could figure out why there was 100% success with animal subjects and 0% with people. The cells wouldn't grow at all. Then a doctor named Franco Tauri, who'd been on the team since the beginning, suggested they try using the tic-tac cells on people in space. He didn't give a reason, and I don't think he had one. It was probably something like, well, it doesn't work here, so let's try it up there. So we did, and it worked. Sort of. The effects were different for everyone. Sometimes cavities were repaired. Sometimes jaw bones grew again. Then again, sometimes teeth fell out, and jaws collapsed. That's what happened to Jose G. No one wanted to use Venus Tic Tacs again. That's why, when this astronaut came to me with pain in his gums and jaw and told me he'd been working on the Feng Li discovery, I was less than thrilled with what I'd find. There'd been a 6-year moratorium on Venus Tic Tac human experimentation since the Jose incident. It had only been lifted a year ago. Apparently someone on that team wanted to pick up right where they'd left off. While I talked to the astronaut, he informed me that there'd been new research on the Tic Tacs. I frowned and told him I wasn't aware of anything new. He filled me in. Apparently there'd been some civilian advances in stem cell technology that ended up contributing to our own knowledge of the science. New experiments were drawn up. Plausibility was determined, and one of the team leaders impressed the brass at NASA's ethics division. That, combined with the limited number of Venus Tic Tacs that had been recovered and the uncertainty surrounding how much longer they'd live, ended the moratorium. That was all well and good. At that point, I still hadn't looked inside the astronaut's mouth. Before we'd started chatting, I had my assistant do some x-rays of his jaw. They developed while we talked. Now they were ready. I'm going to digress for a second. Have you ever seen what a child's skull looks like before their adult teeth have come in? It's unsettling. Look at this. That was all of us at one point. I've been a dentist for the last 36 years. I've dealt with a lot of crazy stuff, but just thinking about all those holes makes me uneasy. Some things just stick with you, I guess. Why am I mentioning this? This astronaut, this grown man, had what looked like new teeth forming above his adult ones. I consulted with the x-rays we took before his mission. There was nothing unusual about them, just the filled cavities and mild bone loss in his jaw that had made him a test candidate for the tic-tac cells. Now, as I stared at the new x-ray, I saw the cavities were still there. The jaw was still decaying, but those dark smudges on the x-ray indicated new teeth deep in there. I'd never seen anything like it. I remained professional. I asked him to lean back and open his mouth so I could begin the examination. As soon as I took my first look, I knew something was dreadfully wrong. His gums were puffy and bled at the slightest touch. His teeth looked gray, as if they'd never been brushed. It didn't make sense. I swung the magnifying lens over and brightened the light. I think he heard me stifle my gasp when I looked through. His teeth were covered in infinitesimal holes. They were much smaller than regular cavities. I looked closer. Each of the holes had a tiny pink hair sticking out of its center. I touched the tip of my instrument to one of the hairs. It recoiled back into the tooth. At this point, I was getting uneasy. I asked the astronaut if what I did hurt, and he told me it did, but not badly. I decided to numb the gums around his top front teeth. While I waited for the Novocaine to take effect, I studied his molars. Those had bigger holes with thicker growths. When I reached for one of them with my instrument, rather than slip back into the tooth, the hair extended about 1/4 of an inch and wrapped around the metal tip. The astronaut didn't seem to feel it. I gave the instrument a gentle tug. Nothing. I pulled harder, but still barely using any force. The molar came out. My patient gasped and I apologized profusely. I stopped what I was doing and put the instrument and the tooth out of his line of sight. I decided to level with him. I told him there was some severe damage to his teeth and I didn't know what it was. I said I needed to do more exploratory work and it would likely be very uncomfortable. The astronaut did his best to take it in stride. He told me he knew something was very, very wrong from the moment he was brushing his teeth on the space station and the bristles would get caught inside the holes. The thought made me shudder. Anyway, I numbed his mouth the best I could and got to work. By the end of it, I'd accidentally caused 9 of his teeth to fall out. All that remained in their place were those bizarre pink hairs. I sent him back to base with an appointment for the next day. It was going to remove the rest of his teeth. I felt terrible for the guy. I got a call in the middle of the night from the head of medicine at the NASA hospital. I had to come there right away. The astronaut's roommate had called emergency services an hour or so ago. He was in excruciating pain and bleeding from the mouth. I arrived at the hospital in 10 minutes. I expected to be able to go right into the room and see the patient, but I was stopped by security and the head of medicine. He instructed me to put on a clean room suit. Right then, I knew something was deeply wrong. I donned the suit and followed the head into one of the 2 observation areas above a hermetically sealed operating room. I looked at one of the television screens showing the astronaut's mouth. My stomach churned. All the man's teeth had fallen out. In their place, growing out of his gaping, bloody gums, were swirling tangles of the pink hairs. I watched as a surgeon grasped one of the tangles in a pair of forceps and pulled. And pulled. One doctor held the astronaut's head while the surgeon put his weight into the effort. With the sound of a heavy piece of brush being torn from the ground, the tangles gave way. They writhed at the end of the forceps. The one still in his mouth stretched out, as if they were trying to take it away and bring it back. The surgeon dropped the veiny clod into a bowl and the camera zoomed in on it. At the top of the tangle was something solid, something that, I realized, looked very much like one of those new teeth deep inside the astronaut's jawbone I'd seen on the X-ray that afternoon. Now, out and exposed to the light, I saw it wasn't a tooth at all. It was a brand new Venus tic-tac, the first we'd ever discovered outside a Venusian meteorite. So the issue of pluripotent stem cells and whether or not they'll benefit human subjects is still a mystery. And after hours of surgery, my patient is in a coma. As a human being, I write this with a heavy heart. As a scientist, though, I have some hope, maybe even a little excitement. Thanks to that poor astronaut, now we know how to breed new Venus Tic Tacs. Perhaps someday we'll learn how to use them. End of report. A psychologist's suicide. Releaser's note. This report is an annotated interview with an American astronaut, which took place in 1981. His name has been changed. The psychologist self-refers as interviewer. The report was originally found at the location of the interviewer's death. Interviewer's note.
The patient is a 42-year-old astronaut. It has been 2 weeks since his last mission. Up until that point, he had been in perfect physical and mental health. During that recent mission, he spent 31 days in low Earth orbit, conducting various experiments pertaining to inorganic chemistry. His condition has not been determined to be the result of any of his work in orbit. Good morning, John. Do you know who I am?
I was told a psychologist would be visiting. Are you her?
I am. I'm Dr.
I'm happy to answer any questions you have for me, Doctor. Maybe I can save us some time and tell you that I know you want to hear about my eyes. So let's start there.
Thank you, John. And you're right. Your eyes are at the top of my agenda. What happened?
Can't you see? I'd be shocked if it weren't obvious.
I see you've turned them backwards. Yes, I've seen the x-rays and imaging. You managed to avoid significant injury, which I think we can both agree is a great thing.
More than great.
Why is that?
Because now I can see everything I'd missed.
Interviewer's note.
John returned from space complaining of headaches and blurry vision. Examinations yielded nothing. His symptoms persisted. The pain grew unbearable and his vision diminished. John declared himself blind 2 days later. Further tests were inconclusive, even if he were in perfect health, which the tests showed. Doctors believed he could not see. All specialists were at a loss. 5 days after John's return from space, he mutilated himself. He dislodged his eyes and stretched the optic nerves enough to turn his eyes to face the inside of his head. Every doctor on staff was baffled by how John had managed to do this without severing the nerves and blood vessels. All John's complaints about headaches and blurry vision ceased. He has been in psychiatric care since then. No attempts have been made to fix the direction of his eyes. Can you explain what you mean by see everything you'd missed?
Ever since I was a kid, I looked up at the stars. They fascinated me. They called to me. I knew when I was 4 that someday I'd walk among them. The books I had said it would be possible in the future. That was all I needed. Lo and behold, I went to space for the first time when I was 36. It was beyond anything I could have expected.
But something was missing.
Yes. I've been to space twice since then. This last time, when I performed a spacewalk to fix something outside the shuttle, I discovered I was wrong to be excited. My dreams had been misplaced.
Can you elaborate on that, John?
I think so, yes. But I need you to trust me. Will you?
I'll listen, John, and I will give you the benefit of the doubt. As for trust, we just met. I don't think either of us have earned it from one another.
That's very fair, and I appreciate your candor. I'll elaborate for you.
Please.
The universe curves in on itself, Doctor. I could look on and on and on through the stars and galaxies and void, and if I could see everything, if my eyes were powerful enough to have an unbroken line of sight, you know what I'd see at the end of it?
Tell me.
I'd see the back of my own head. No matter where I looked, that's all I could ever see. All our exploration, all we might find, all terminates right there. We watch ourselves watching ourselves for eternity.
I have to admit, John, that's a pretty interesting theory. Did you come up with it while you were in space, or did you get the idea at another time in your life?
No, I didn't think of it myself. It was whispered to me during my last spacewalk.
Whispered? By whom?
Interviewer's note.
I should remark here that I noticed the first change in John's physical appearance after asking that question. The blood vessels in his eyes swelled and his optic nerves pulsated. He gave no indication that anything was wrong, however, and I believed it was appropriate to continue our interview.
The universe sent me an emissary. She wanted me to know the truth.
Are you referring to an alien intelligence? Were you able to determine whether it was one of the species we've already encountered?
I don't think so, no.
Was it something new?
No, not new at all. I believe it was the universe herself.
Can you tell me what it said? The universe?
Interviewer's note.
John was silent for a stretch of nearly 4 minutes. I did not disturb him. He appeared in deep thought, though given the condition of his eyes, it was difficult to say for sure.
The whisper said, Suiversal vastation.
Suiversal? My Latin is a little rusty, John. Is it like the universe of the self? I know vastation, but I'm unclear on how those words connect.
Suiversal vastation. And the whisper showed me. It was just a glimpse, just a peek. But that was all I needed. It was when the headaches started and my vision started to go. My mind had been rewired to the new way of seeing. Turning my eyes to face, it was the necessary step.
Can you see, John?
I can. I do.
What can you see?
I see the purifying of the chaos that had been inside me. In its place is the real universe. The universe I'd been wanting to see since I was a child. And it's where the answers are, every last one. You mentioned the aliens, Doctor? The ones who stare through space, just like us? It's a terrible anthropomorphism. They are not like us. They stare, yes, but with purpose, although one they don't yet know. What they want to see is what I'm looking at right now, the echoes of human thought, the cycles of dominating our volition onto nature, rather than nature being raped into us. We are the only ones who can do that, Doctor, and the aliens know it, and they'll find us.
I just don't understand, John. The aliens want our control over nature? Is that what you're telling me?
It would be easier if I just showed you.
End of report. Releaser's note. I was able to piece together the subsequent events using the abandoned log entries from NASA security personnel and medical officials. I cannot guarantee that all the information was logged, and there may be gaps in the timeline. Below are the relevant excerpts. Security report. The astronaut held out his right index finger. It began to elongate. I, as well as rushed to intervene, but the psychologist waved us away, claiming, "I want to see." The finger grew to approximately 5 feet long, spanning the table where the astronaut and doctor were conducting their interview. The finger pressed against doctor's left eye. She made a sound that suggested pain and started toward the astronaut again. "Do not interfere," the doctor ordered. I demanded to stay back. For a moment, the finger did nothing but press on the psychologist's eye. Then it moved lower and slipped under the eyelid. The eye became dislodged and fell against the doctor's cheek. And I watched as the finger appeared to grow longer and pushed into the doctor's head. There was a space of 10 minutes when no one spoke. Both the doctor and astronaut were motionless, aside from the eyes of the astronaut swelling and pulsating. After those 10 minutes, he withdrew his finger. I must remark that there was blood on about 18 inches of it. The doctor made one articulation which sounded to us like, "Oh." She then spent 2 or 3 minutes resituating her eye. She got up and left. I had follow her back to her apartment, but she did not allow him entry. End of report. Medical report. Dr. was found deceased in her apartment by security officer. According to his notes, it had been 3 hours since he had been turned away at the door of her apartment following an incident with Astronaut. The second visit had been for the purpose of checking her well-being after phone calls went unanswered. Emergency officials deemed her death a suicide, but parallels between her condition and that of the astronaut cannot be overlooked. Her left eye, which had been involved in the interview, had been turned to face the inside of her head. Her right eye, however, had been torn out. Written in blood on the dining room wall, presumably with the excised right eye, were the following words: "Fixating and turning in mass direction. Now they know why they look." End of report. If you've got your own scary and creepy tales, or anything that's kept you up at night, drop them in the comments section below or get in contact with us to narrate them. We want to hear from fellow thrill seekers like you. If you like this story, don't forget to hit the thumbs up so we can have more audience listen to these stories and continue to do them. And don't forget to keep watching while they're watching you.